Welcome back, students. Today we're going to learn how to create several things. One, we're going to learn how to create a coil, which is a feature you would use to create a spring. We're also going to learn how to create a tapered spring. And we're also going to learn how to create, let's see here, I got my list here, an emboss and an engrave. So we have several things we're going to learn. One more time, a coil, emboss, and engrave. Okay, so let me go ahead and get started. I'm going to double click on Autodesk Inventor Professional here. It's going to take a minute to come up. I'm going to try to do all this in one video. We'll see. All right, the first thing I'm going to do is go up here to projects, and I'm going to create a new project and new single user project next. And the project name is going to be CAD 241 week 5. Or is this week? I think this is actually week 6. Wow, time is getting away. Select next and finish. And it says the project path you entered doesn't exist. Should it be created? Select OK. And I'm going to make sure I'm current in that project right there, which I am. So yeah, by default, I'm current in the project. All right, so it's CAD 241 week 6. You could right click on it and rename it, but I'm going to leave it as is. Done. All right, so we're going to go to new, and you can expand this. We're going to work with a metric part today. So let's select metric and come over here and select standard IPT, and then come down here the lower right hand corner and select create. So we're going to work with the coil feature. So I'm going to teach you how to create a compression spring. Now, most of the time, Mr. Morris is going to go and find this information on the internet, some catalog somewhere. The geometry has already been created for me. But let's say you wanted to create a special spring or some sort of coil function. Okay, so we're going to start 2D sketch, and I'm going to click on the XY plane. Okay, now we need to first, when we're creating a spring or a coil, I'm going to pan down here a little bit. I'm going to draw a line here, an arbitrary length from the center up. So a vertical line. Right click, OK. So you have a vertical line there. And then I'm going to draw another line from this point along the x-axis. And I'm going to come out 15 millimeters and do a right click, OK. All right, so I have this vertical line and I have a horizontal line that comes out 15 millimeters. And I'm going to go to circle, center point. I'm going to click on this point here. And I want to make this have this circle. I want it to be a diameter of 6. So enter 6 and enter. Do a right click. OK. So that's my basic sketch right here. All right. So going to finish the sketch. Here. And notice that we want to be in the isometric view here. Okay, or I do anyway. So go to coil. All right, and so we have this window that opens up. And for what we're going to do for the spring, this is going to be our line where we revolve our feature about here. This is a circle. We're going to revolve it about this line. And so this is our axis. But before we get to that point, we need to talk about some of the nomenclature associated with a spring. When you hear the word pitch, that's the distance from one coil to the next. And then this is the height of your overall spring here, and whether or not you're going to have a tapered angle. Now, we're not going to make a tapered angle on our first exercise, but we will on our second exercise. Okay. So right now, the pitch and height is the one I'm going to use. So the pitch is 12 millimeters. The height is also 120 millimeters, which means we're going to have um, at least 10 coils. Okay. We're going to have at least 10 coils. Okay. So let's go ahead and do this. So leave the pitch at 12. Again, the pitch is the distance from one coil to the next, okay, from center to center. And the height is the overall height of this spring. And this spring that we're creating is a compression spring. And I don't want it to be a 30-degree angle like shown here. I don't want to have a taper on it. So I'm just going to type in 0 here. Okay. So now we have our information. The pitch is 12, the height is 120 millimeters, and a taper angle of 0. Go ahead and select this where it says axis. Select the axis. We're going to pick right here. Okay. And notice how my coil is going down. I want it to go up, so I can flip it right here. This reverses the direction. I'm going to go up like this. Okay. And let's see. So we have our profile. We have our axes. We know the overall pitch from, that's going to be, again, that's going to be the distance from this point to this point will be the pitch. And the height is 120 millimeters. So if you divide 120 by 12, you should have 10. All right. And again, the taper angle should be 0. This is rotation. This is right hand thread versus left hand. We're working with right hand today. All right. And select OK. All right. So here is our spring. And you can look at it at different perspectives here. I always like to work with isometric, obviously. And I am going to file and I'm going to save as, and we are going to call this spring dash A. Okay, spring dash A, and select save. All right, so that's spring A. This is the model of the spring. I'm going to go ahead and give it some material properties here. So right click on this, file name, come down to iProperties, go over to physical, and select your material choice. I'm going to go ahead and select mild steel and select apply and close. Okay. And so there you can see the spring. It has kind of a sheen to it. The spring has you can see it kind of have like a little bit of a shine to it here, metallic shine or sheen. And we want to create a drawing of this. So let me save this, file, save. All right, now we want to make a drawing of this. So go to start 2D sketch. Oops, sorry, I don't want to do that. Mr. Morris needs a backup here. We want to do file new. Sorry, file new. Make sure you select metric because metric is how we model the part. We also have to have a metric drawing as well. All right, so I'm going to select ANSI millimeters IDW here. That stands for American National Standards Institute. MM is millimeters, and IDW stands for inventor, drawing file, select create. All right. Now, after you select create, I don't want to use this size drawing. So come over here on the browser, do a right click where it says sheet 1 and edit the sheet. Now we want a landscape is fine for what we're going to do today, but we want a size A sheet of paper, select OK. All right, so there we go. All right, so now we're going to make a kind of a very simple drawing of our spring. Go to base, and there is our spring. And I think I use a scale of 1 to 1. I made it actually 1 to 1 here. So go down to where it says scale and make that 1 to 1. And I'm going to rotate this around a bit. Maybe I'll rotate it right there. And that looks pretty good to me. Almost like OK. Now I'm going to hold down my left mouse button. I'm going to drag the spring over this way. All right, now I want to project it. Click here and drag your spring over like this. Do a right click, create. Now we have the spring, the front view and the right side view of the spring. I'm going to annotate this a little bit. Go to annotate, and we're going to put in a center mark here, and one here, and one here. So do it here and on this edge of the circle here. Do a right click, OK. Now we're going to dimension this a little bit. Not going to add a whole lot of dimensions, just add the few basic dimensions that you need to describe the spring. So we're going to go to dimension here, and I'm going to click on zoom in, click on this coil, and you can see that it's 6 millimeters. And select OK. Zoom out. Now I'm going to change that number of decimal places here shortly. Also, I'm going to click on this center, and I'm going to drag up a dimension of 120. Click, select OK. All right, and so this is our overall length. So if you count the number of coils, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I think on the drawing I posted earlier, I may have made a mistake and put 12 coils, but the number of coils is 10. It only makes sense, right? Because the distance from this coil to this coil is 12. Now, I'm going to put a dimension here and select OK. And I'm going to put a dimension right here. And I don't really want it to be a radius. So do a right click and come down to dimension type and select diameter. So if that ever happens to you, make sure you do a right click and select diameter. Okay. All right. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a note here about the type of spring that that we have here. We want some more information about our spring. So go to text, come down here below the spring and click, and we're going to type in compression spring. All right. And we're going to highlight this, make it bold, underline. All right. And now we're going to enter. And the mean diameter, oops, I don't want that to be bold. Let me cut off the bold and cut off the underline. And I'm just going to enter one space here. Mean diameter equals. Now here's the diameter symbol. Click here and type in 30. Enter. And the pitch equals 12 millimeters. Now that could be lowercase. All right. Normally I don't like to use lowercase letters, but in terms of units, I would encourage you to use lowercase letters. And then the number of coils equals 10. Now, I know earlier when I did this, I made a mistake and made this 12. So on your homework assignment, if you see 12, just change it to 10. I won't take off either way, but it should be 10. I'm going to select OK. All right. Now I'm going to do a right click OK, and I'm going to move my geometry up a little bit, and I'm going to move this node up some. All right, now we're almost done with this very simple drawing, but the whole idea here is I wanted you to see how to create a spring. And in most cases, you would go and look for a spring manufacturer who might have CAD data on the internet. You can just download the spring into your drawing package, which I can show you later. But for right now, I just want you to get an idea how to create a spring or a coil feature and what are some important information about the dimensions and so forth. Now I did say I was going to show you how to change the dimensions. Right click, come down here, edit dimension style. Okay, and then it takes a while for it to come up. Hang on. When it finally comes up, just change this precision to 0 and save and close. And you see it changed all of my dimensions here to 2 places. Okay, now I'm going to file and save. All right, and I'm going to save it as Spring A, obviously. So we're going to save that. Now, the drawing looks pretty good. I would like to go ahead and fill out the title block here. And we've done this. Come over to the browser, right click on this, and go to iProperties and go to summary, and title of this is going to be compression spring. Okay, compression spring, and the subject is CAD 241, and the author, this would be you, but since this is my drawing, I'm going to put me as the author. The manager would be my last name, and the company would be Thomas Nelson Community College. All right. Now you have this under this line, you can put whatever you want to. It's not going to show up on the title block. And I'm going to go to project, change the designer to your last name, should be uppercase. Engineer will be your last name, and the authority would be my last name. All right. Go to status, checked by you, and click on the date. Engineer approved by Mr. Morris. Check on the date. Manufacturing approved by Mr. Morris. Check on the date there. And say apply, close, file, and save. All right, so this is our first spring drawing here. What I'd like you to do now is go File and export this as a PDF. All right, so it's Spring A PDF. I'm going to save this. All right, so here's our model. Now, what I'd also like for you to do, please, is also file and export this as an image. All right, and we're going to save it as a PNG. All right, so make sure you select PNG and then save. All right, so now you have a PNG file and you have um, a, a PDF file that you need to post for your homework assignment. All right, but I'll talk more about the directions here shortly. So that's how you create a spring. And for your homework, you just need to be able to create a PNG file of this picture, and then you need to create a PDF of this drawing here. All right, that concludes. I'm not going to make one long video. I think it might be confusing to do that. So this takes care of how to create a compression spring. Okay. All right. So that I'll see you shortly.